Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for Dr. Strauss and panelists for bringing up these issues. I would just note we are, my colleague Senator Collins and I had worked on an adaptation bill several years ago that we got out of the Commerce Committee, but not all the way through Congress. And I can tell you we're seeing the impacts of climate change right now on ocean acidification levels and how it's affecting the shellfish industry in the Pacific Northwest. So we're really seeing economic impacts. And your statement about the impact of storms, and really, I'm not so sure we haven't already had those 200-year events back to back almost in the last a few years back when we saw major damage. But now you're talking about a century, flood more than triples by 2030. So to me, we have so much property in Puget Sound. We have something like $28.7 billion worth of structures that could be impacted on these kinds of rise in sea level issues. And so to me, the issue is what do we do now? Do you think that this is an issue of getting maps established and some verification of these maps addressed at local levels? I mean, when you think about what we've been doing for emergency response and things of that nature, you got to get the plan. You got to get people to understand what the impacts are, and then you can basically get communities to try to plan around them. And we know this obviously because of tsunamis in general, but what you're saying is get ready, you're going to see a lot more of this, and it's going to have a very, very dramatic economic impact, a lot bigger than people realize.
Thank you, Senator. Yes, I expect there will be a significant economic impact and that we're already experiencing one, although we may not label it as such. I agree with my colleagues that we will be able to deal with this problem much more efficiently if we have better information. One side of that better information is improved maps, improved elevation maps at a very fine scale in coastal areas. And I know a lot of progress is being made on that front with laser LiDAR elevation mapping. I think the more difficult area is actually around understanding storm surge and the water dynamics. Our analysis of elevation in my research covers all of the area, all of the coastal area in the lower 48, but our analysis of storm surge focuses on 55 water level stations that NOAA maintains around the coast. One is in Seattle, but they're scattered. So understanding in detail what the storm surge patterns are in between those 55 stations involves a lot of scientific firepower, a lot of computing, a lot of simulation of different storms from different angles at different tides. So there is a tremendous amount of work that I think we could do to improve our understanding of how sea level rise will interact with storm surges and progressively reach new areas posing new risks.
Well, I can tell you I plan on introducing legislation to make sure that we implement what is a weather-ready nation. The notion that we have information that could be helpful to the American public about storms, but we just don't have the dedicated computing time to take all the algorithms and run the scenarios is a mistake. We just need to move forward. And the fact that, yes, NOAA does have now almost handheld devices that can communicate within instance of an earthquake what the sea level rise would be in a geographic area. That's the kind of technology we need to have in first responders' hands and all of these individuals. And so I think that we just have to figure out how to be much more aggressive about outlining these maps and scenarios for people so that we can start the planning. And obviously we need to do, I think we need to do more than, you're talking about effects that are going to take place regardless of whether we do anything about climate change and climate change legislation. These are the things that are going to happen. So now the question is, if we keep making it worse, what are the scenarios that are going to happen? So I just believe that this is worth a lot of prevention if we can just get the computing time and get the computing time scenarios. And just as an example, we were without a Doppler system in the Northwest. Now we have that state-of-the-art Doppler system on the coast, and it can tell us much more about storm intensity. It can say exactly where that water level is going to be and help us in communicating this to lots of people. But we have to do the job first, which is get the information to local governments, to individuals, to first responders, so that they can understand what the scenario really is. And I think today's hearing, Mr. Chairman, really goes a long way in highlighting how critically important this is to our economy. We just can't sustain this kind of level of sea level rise without a plan. We need a plan. Thank you.